Hey guys, what's up? Oddball Comics here. So, we are on the final part for the Avengers and X-Men Axis storyline. So, I'm super excited to get to this. Other than that, let's get started. Alright guys, so in our last video, we see that Old Man Steve Rogers has assembled a new Avengers ready to stop the inverted Avengers and the inverted X-Men. With the inverted X-Men creating a gene bomb ready to destroy the whole world and only let mutants survive, this has to be stopped. So, let's see what happens. In the first page of the comic, we see Havoc staring at Janet, locked up on Apocalypse's ship, asking his brother if they could save just one human from the bomb, contemplating if this is worth the sacrifice. As he talks to Scott about this, Nightcrawler comes in grabbing both Cyclops and Havoc, telling them to come, and Nightcrawler ends up teleporting them into the middle of a huge fight outside of the ship between the newest Avengers, led by Steve Rogers, and the inverted X-Men. But on the inside of the ship, we do see Spider-Man and the inverted Deadpool, now known as Monkpool, hiding in the beams watching Apocalypse. Growing impatient, Monkpool jumps down, kicking Apocalypse in the back of the head. When he looks up at Monkpool, Apocalypse begins to shoot beams at him. As Monkpool dodges out of the way, Apocalypse extends his arm, bashing him into the wall. And with the two of them fighting, Spider-Man tries to disable the bomb, until Apocalypse notices him and then dragging all three outside to the big fight. Watching what is happening, Nightcrawler teleports, grabbing Spider-Man and pinning him as he holds his sword to his neck. We see Carnage swinging, kicking Nightcrawler away, leaving Spider-Man in shock that he just got saved by Carnage. We cut over to actually Latveria now, where Scarlet Witch is fighting Dr. Doom, Magneto, and her brother Quicksilver. Wanda casts a spell to specifically hurt her family, but when the spell has no effect on Magneto and only Quicksilver, we actually find out that Magneto is not their father at all, and for neither Scarlet Witch or Quicksilver. And as this happens, Dr. Doom teleports away, escaping the fight, or so it seems. As the fight in Manhattan continues, we see so many heroes and villains fighting. We see Sabretooth is fighting Storm, while Colossus and Absorbing Man are duking it out. Monkpool begins to sing to the crowd as Apocalypse shoves his head into the pavement, then picking him up and just beating the snot out of Monkpool, then ripping off his head. Back at the gene bomb, Spider-Man sneaks back in, trying to disable the bomb once more, but with no luck. He desperately starts to tear out the wires in a panic, until Carnage comes up with the idea to wrap himself around the whole bomb, sacrificing himself with his one and only request. And that request is to build a memorial made out of gold, jewels, and rhinestones, draped in the Confederate flag, singing the song Free Bird around the clock. And with this, Spider-Man agrees. He swings out as a bomb detonates, killing Carnage. And at this point, the inverted Avengers arrive onto the scene to stop the inverted X-Men as well from trifling their plans. And as the fight happens, Thor gets the upper hand on Apocalypse, and before he deals the final blow, Absorbing Man grabs his axe, absorbing the Uru metal, trying to stop Thor with no luck. Loki then comes in, baiting Thor into a portal set by Enchantress, sending the both of them to the moon. But we end up going back to Latveria, where Wanda's literally destroying Doom's castle while beating down Magneto and Quicksilver until Dr. Doom opens a portal back up, bringing back to life Dr. Voodoo and his brother by making a deal with a demigod. Dr. Voodoo's brother comes in possessing Wanda to finally stop destroying the castle and is now under their control. With everyone still fighting in Manhattan, Old Man Steve Rogers takes his opportunity to sneak into the Avengers Tower. With him knowing where the Red Skull is, thanks to Jarvis, he puts on an exosuit and goes to recover him. And with Sam Wilson aware of what's going on, thanks to Iron Man sensors, Sam Wilson flies up to the tower with standing before him Steve Rogers and a severely weakened Red Skull. Sam Wilson flies at Steve, and when Steve punches him away, trying to convince Sam to stop what he's doing and to see what's actually going on, Sam continues to ignore Steve and begins to beat him down. And when he finally slams his shield down on Steve Rogers' neck, he ends up vanishing in a cloud of dust from beneath him, meaning the whole fight to Sam Wilson was just an illusion from the mental imaging from the Red Skull. And as a real Steve Rogers and the Red Skull escaped through the sewers. And as this happens, we do see a clear winner in the fight between the X-Men and the Avengers, with the Avengers on top. And when Sam Wilson comes back to the group, he announces that the two escaped and the Avengers fly over towards the Avengers mansion. But meanwhile, Havoc has broken Wasp out of her restraints, trying to convince Wasp that he's the good guy and trying to pin everything on Old Man Steve Rogers. He continues to talk to Wasp As she looks down, seeing bits and pieces of carnage all over, ends up deducing that his original plan had failed and she was merely just a backup plan. So she ends up blasting Havoc away and flying off. And from here, we're going to jump all over the place, and we actually start with Apocalypse talking to Deadpool, with Deadpool telling him this isn't him, and the real him is buried just deep down inside. He starts to tell him he can fight this. He can fight this monster inside of him, and tells him it's time to save the day. And at this point, we go to the moon, where Loki is running for his life from Thor. He ends up running over to Mjolnir, which was stranded on the moon due to Thor being unworthy of the hammer. He tells himself it's time to sink or swim, and begins to pick up the hammer, becoming worthy to wield Mjolnir, and begins to swing, knocking Thor out and eliminating Thor from the fight. Finally, we end up back in Avengers Mansion, where the Red Skull and Steve arrive. When they try to begin to formulate a plan to reverse everything, Club breaks through the wall, with the Avengers shortly following behind. Nomad leaps towards Club as Steve and Sam start duking it out, while Iron Man begins to strangle the Red Skull. It becomes complete chaos inside the room. Sam knocks off Steve's helmet and begins to continuously punch Steve in the face. Steve looks over in desperation at his son, watching Club to begin to pull him apart, and everything seems like all hope is lost, when Apocalypse breaks through the wall, throwing Club across the room. With his change of heart from Deadpool, Apocalypse yells for them to get Red Skull out of here. And as the group heads towards the jet, Luke Cage comes bursting through the concrete, when Spider-Man swings in with Sabretooth, leveling up Luke, distracting them. While they begin to load up the plane, as the engines start to start up, Iron Man comes into the front, blowing up the jet, throwing Nomad towards the scrap, and just sends Steve flying with a flick of his wrist. And when all hope seems lost, Magneto, Dr. Doom, and the rest of the group, along with the recently possessed Scarlet Witch, comes landing in and stop Tony in his tracks. Now having Scarlet Witch, the Red Skull, and Dr. Doom, they begin to invert everyone that was originally affected, except Iron Man, Havoc, and Sabretooth, thanks to Iron Man's neuro shield around them, avoiding the secondary flip. So after the blast, Iron Man flies off before anyone realizes, and everyone begins to stand up. Havoc grabs Wasp, putting his hand to her head, ready to blow it off, forcing her to shrink down to let him escape before anyone can do anything. But Magneto begins to point out that Dr. Doom has escaped and there's no signs of Red Skull. With everything finally back to normal, we come to find out that the villains had created a recording while they were still good and sent it to the local news, blaming themselves for the events that had happened, making the heroes still seem like the good guys in all this. And so with the end of this event, there's a few things that have changed. Sabretooth is now a hero, since he was never inverted a second time. Iron Man is still a villain who's living out in San Francisco. Spider-Man begins to make Carnage's memorial for the sacrifice he had made, while Havoc and Cyclops begin to reconcile. But most importantly, back at Castle Doom, Dr. Doom sits on his throne while he has the Red Skull under his control. Alright guys, that's actually part 3 for the Avengers and X-Men Axis storyline. So if you guys really enjoy these stories, make sure to hit like and, click that subscribe. Tell me in the comments below if there's any storylines you want me to do or any other characters. Other than that, I'll check you guys later.